Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be here today. He is working very hard, apparently, and can't be here for the Burgundy Zone, which is okay. We're accepting it at that point. Now, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. Title of this episode is The Last Dance. And to get the best possible opinion heading into this last matchup against the Cowboys, we brought in our boy, Mr. Sam Fortier from the Washington Post. Thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's amazing to hear that Michael Reed might be working hard. I guess there's a first time for everything.
Yeah, there is a first time for everything. And it's funny. If you honestly knew my response to him when he told me that, you'd laugh. But speaking of working hard, Sam, before we get into the game this weekend, the possible players are going to be missing action and everything like that, talk to me about the timeline of this ownership, because I am very interested in what is going to go down as soon as that game ends on Sunday, because the draft is very close to coming up. You got to get your hirings in. They're going to get started fast, aren't they?
Yeah, I would imagine so. I think that I would imagine Monday, maybe afternoon, because players are going to clean out their locker and we'll be in there on
Okay.
Monday morning. I could see ownership deciding to do it Sunday night. I could see them deciding to do it Monday morning, Monday afternoon. But I mean, I think everybody expects that Ron Rivera and GM Martin Mayhew uh, will be gone on those days, and then you'll see. Maybe it could be Tuesday, but I imagine it'll get done sooner rather than later, and then they can start moving forward and remaking the football side of this operation.
Okay.
Yeah, like Kyle said, definitely hope they get at least the GM side of it get a quick start on that, because I feel like a lot of teams are going to be plucking guys and they're going to be dropping like flies, so got to get a head start. But as far as as we were just talking about, like the last game, Dallas, if we get slotted at that number 2 spot, obviously if you've been on Twitter lately, you've seen half the fan base is, oh, Caleb Williams, I want him. The other half is I guess a third of it is, oh, I want Caleb Williams. A third of it is, oh, he's going to be a bust. And the other third is, oh, we need to trade back. And
Right.
so I would say if they're at that number 2 spot, if New England goes out there, beats the Jets, we lose to Dallas, we'd stay locked at that 2 spot. Do you pass up on a quarterback, or is there an argument to be made for maybe trading back and collecting more picks, I should say?
I appreciate where this question is coming from, and I think it's a really good one. I've been monitoring really just the draft situation where they could fall, but I really haven't done too much of a scout on like where these quarterbacks are at. I know obviously Caleb Williams doesn't have the size, but he has elite traits. Drake May has size, but what are his traits? I mean, I watched Michael Penix in the playoff, and I was like, dang, that dude had a laser, especially on that throw up the middle against cover 2 or quarters or whatever it was. Those are all things that I'm going to look at and talk to people about more in the offseason. But right now, I think how they finish out this season, what matters, and then finding the people who will make those decisions. Like what offensive scheme are you running? Is it something that Caleb Williams can do versus Drake May can do? Is it something that, do you like Jaden Daniels? Do you like Penix or one of these other guys? Like, I get where people are coming from, and I'm as excited as anybody to dig into, like, what is the path for this team to be good? What is the path to get back on contention? But, like, I just think that there's a lot of steps to go through before that.
I got you, Sam. Now, I know we kind of want to get into Dallas and talk about this game this weekend, but just in terms of names to monitor in regards to not only GM, but just in football operations, possibly front office, are there some names that we should, as fans, be monitoring?
Yeah, I think my colleague Nikki Jabvala wrote 2 great stories about, GMs to watch and head coaches to watch. I think with GMs, probably starts with Adam Peters for the San Francisco 49ers. He's a guy that's well respected around the league, and I think would be a big time get for them. You got to look at for head coach. I mean, Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, is going to be, I think one of the biggest guys on the market, maybe going to end up as the highest paid first year head coach ever. Those are really the headliners, but I think that there are a lot of other guys. The defensive coordinator up in Baltimore is a strong candidate. I
Mike
think
McDonald.
Mike McDonald, the offensive coordinator in Miami, the offensive coordinator in Philly, even though they haven't played as well, I still think that he's a good offensive mind. I think that there's going to be a lot of different guys. I mean, you could look on the front office side. You could go up to Philly. Alec Halaby, I know, is an analytical guy. I wonder if you would want a more traditional evaluator type. But I think that there's a lot of names, and I think that most importantly, in kind of contrast to approaches past, I think this is going to be a very comprehensive search. I think they're going to interview a lot of people. I think that Josh Harris knows how to do this, right? He has done this in other sports. Like, he's going to cast a wide net, and they're going to come up with the guy that they think is the best.
I got you. And Sam, to piggyback off of that, there's been a lot of people hypothetically saying that Bill Belichick could possibly be a coach here into next year. And I want to ask you, does that seem viable given the fact of Ron Rivera having the coach-centric approach already up until this point, knowing the product and what we have at the moment in results? Do you think that is what Josh Harris and company would fit into doing?
Every expectation is that they're going to move away from the coach-centric model. I think it's really hard for that to work out. I think obviously there are some notable examples, Kansas City, Seattle, New England for a long time. But as this thing gets tougher, the league, I think it's really hard to have a coach that dominates, especially if you don't have a franchise quarterback. So, Bill Belichick is probably the greatest NFL head coach of all time.
Right.
But given where he's at and given the way that the New England Patriots roster looks right now, no Pro Bowlers. He's the guy that was picking the players. This is I think it would be really hard, considering where you are right now, to then go out and say, like, yeah, Bill Belichick's our guy, even though that might sound crazy.
You're right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, so on to Sunday, where I guess there actually is a game. I guess we should talk about that. There's 4 more quarters left of Washington football to be seen this season. Some people would say that might be a good thing. But my question is, over the past couple of weeks, there's been like a lot of injuries, some young guys playing, getting some reps. Has there been any guys that you've kind of seen, like young guys, that have maybe popped out or that you've noticed that are putting some stuff on tape that can maybe carry over into next season, depending on who the coaches and staff is and whatnot?
It's so funny you guys asked this, because I feel like I was talking to John Keim yesterday, and like the bar to be impressed right now feels really low. But here 2 guys who have actually played, I think, good football this season. Maybe the only 2 that you could say definitively have taken steps forward: running back Brian Robinson and right guard Sam Cosmi. I think those 2 dudes, and like running back and right guard, are not going to make a successful NFL offense in 2024.
Fair.
But like I do think those 2 dudes have balled this year.
Okay.
I think that Quan Martin has looked a little bit better in the last couple of weeks, but in that discussion with Keim, I was saying that I think that like the most important thing for me in this last game is getting everybody that you want to see reps, because when the next GM and coach come in here, they need to see these reps. And I don't think Emmanuel Forbes has been impressive, especially, coming off of last game when he played 99% of the snaps. And that was the first time he'd been over 33%, I think, in like 5 weeks, especially coming off the injury. Like, he is not where you want a first-round pick to be, but you need to play him as much as possible so that people have all the data they need to be like, where does this guy fit, if anywhere, on this defense moving forward?
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, because I totally agree with you about seeing all the young guys that you possibly can heading into the offseason, so you kind of have a good feel on where these guys are heading into the offseason with the turnover that they have. That being said, do you know why Cole Turner has not been getting reps, has even been dressing for games? What's going on there? Because you would imagine that that's one of the guys you'd want to see more of.
He's not a strong blocker, and that is the short answer. I can't put it any blunter than that. And I think that, like, when I think about where this offense is and what they could use, like, I want to see Cole Turner as a pass catcher. I think that he can add dimensions to this offense, and that, there are ways you could deploy him in the sense that when you bring him in, it's not an automatic indicator this is a pass.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just when you watch him hit the sleds outside, there's a clear difference between him and everybody else, and that's a part of his game that being a converted receiver, he knew he would have to work on coming into the NFL, and I think that he can improve in those areas. But the simple answer when people say like why isn't he playing is the blocking.
I got you. He would have definitely benefited if Pete Hayner would have been able to stick around a little bit. I'm happy to hear that. But now to move on, I only have a couple more questions
Oh,
for
no,
you.
let me get one more in because I just actually just thought of this.
All right.
My bad. I actually just like popped in my head because we were talking about Cole Turner, and I guess everyone had like such high expectations coming into the season just based off what we're hearing in training camp, and just like he seems like that new age kind of athletic tight end that you would want to have in your offense. But this kind of popped in my head. I mean, this is just wide range; doesn't have to be player, personnel, anything like that. What are some positives that have come out of this whole Ron Rivera era over the past 4 years, if any, in your opinion?
Okay.
Um, I think that
Dan
I've
Snyder
been
sold.
thinking. I mean, yeah, like that. I mean, I do think like the Ron Rivera era. Are you talking about on the field, or are you talking about like
This
in
is just a
general?
wide range, anything, like just
Okay,
anything.
I think that it's hard to argue that the football team is better now than when he got here. And I think that that's particularly true in the trenches. The offensive line, when he showed up,
Yeah.
had Trent Williams and Brandon Sheriff, and the defensive line had 5 first-round picks. And obviously, you lose Ryan Kerrigan to retirement. That's not his fault. But you have
Right.
2 fewer first-round picks, and you never got them to play at the level that everybody expected them to play at. Never solved the quarterback situation. I think it's really hard to argue that this football team is better in any. And I would say maybe his best player acquisition, I would argue, is Cam Curl, who I think is a really good safety, but could leave in free agency. So um, I think that's where it's at on football. Switching to that, and I'm not saying that this has to be that people have to give him credit for this, but I do think that people underestimate and underrate Ron's ability to keep the team together under extreme duress during the final days of Dan Snyder. Those days were dark, and
Yeah.
people think back to like the statement they put out about B Rob when they got sued by the Attorney General of DC, kind of using him as a shield and using his shooting as a political prop. Like, when you go through circumstances like that, and you have an owner that it feels like is creating negative headlines every other day. Uh, I mean, I think it's a really challenging position to be in as a coach. And I do think Ron's strength is connecting with players, getting them to play hard, even when the season has long odds. Um, and so there are a lot of things you can complain about. I think justifiably so during the Ron Rivera era. But I think that considering the upheaval and the turmoil this organization was going through, I think he was one of a few coaches that probably could get them through that in one piece.
I got you. Now, this is a new year, Sam. Last year kind of pissed us all off with how the football season went. So we want to start this new season, this offseason, new year, on a fun note. That being said, let's say the game of football was changed to MMA, and each team had to select one guy to meet in the center to fight it out to get the win. Who from Washington are you picking?
Wow, this is a hilarious idea. Man, I mean, MMA is tough because I think if you went with wrestling, you would pick maybe like John Ridgway, or
Okay.
you would pick Sam Cosme, or just a really big dude that I think uses their weight effectively. Um, but when you talk about MMA, being explosive, striking,
MMA fan, Sam
maybe
Fortier.
maybe it's still. I know nothing about MMA, but I'm just saying it's not.
He's throwing keywords out
I
there.
just I just well I
He's
know
like
I just
breaking
know
it
that
down. You got to strike with your left hand.
it's a different skill set. Like
It is.
like as much as I love Sam Cosby, I don't know if he's got that explosive punch. You know what I mean? I know he's acrobatic. Um,
I was right there with you. I would have picked Sam.
mm, yeah, I think that's probably who. I mean, if Chase and Tez were here, I think it's easy. Like I think it's
Yeah.
one of them for sure. But I don't know. This is that's a tough one. I mean, I do think when you talk about physicality and toughness, pound for pound, I think B Rob's got to be up there.
Okay.
Um, when I covered the Chargers, I remember like going to the locker room, and it was when Austin Eckler was maybe a rookie, and Melvin Gordon was the lead back at the time, and even then, like, and they had some dudes on that team, Brandon Mebane,
Yeah.
Bosa, and I remember like going around the locker room asking like who's the strongest guy in here, and everybody said Eckler, and he's the smallest dude in the gym, but like they were like pound for pound, like that dude's a freak, and so I'm trying to think. I don't think Washington has an Eckler. Um,
Pick Terry. Do it for the
nah,
culture.
I mean, like I think Terry's like a really good receiver, but I mean he's a good dude, you know. Like I think you need a dude with an edge. I think you need a dude with a real edge, you know. Like Terry, I haven't seen Terry try to run through a dude's face like B Rob has.
That's true.
That's true.
That's a good point, Sam. I think B Rob is probably a good one. I think he would agree with you in that sense. But my next question for you, now to bring this in a serious note, Jahan Dotson, what's going on with Jahan? Is there anything behind the scenes? I know you can't go into detail or anything like that, but kind of give us some clarity if you can.
Just in terms of his lack of production.
Yes, lack of usage.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same thing you've seen with Terry at times this year, right? Like this offense is a schematic offense where it's up to the quarterback to get his dudes touches. He's not going to, Eric Bieniemy's done a better job in the last few weeks, but it's not been traditionally an offense that manufactures touches for certain guys in the same way that the
Right.
Dolphins offense is tailored around Tyreek. Like this is a system that like, okay, you got to get Terry. You're going to get your X a certain amount of touches, and like that's Terry. I think with Jahan, it's usage, but it's also just the way that Sam Howell has gone. And obviously, Jahan's frustrated. He talked about it in the locker room yesterday. Uh, but I don't think I don't get the sense that like Jahan is being punished or
Okay.
that Eric Bieniemy doesn't like him. Like
Okay.
I think it's circumstantial, which I think even makes it kind of more frustrating
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
for a guy because like especially when the same thing happened with Terry, and it's like the offense is better when Terry touches the ball. The offense is better when Jahan touches the ball, and I mean you boys have watched it. This is just not a good offense for right now, and I think
Hey,
that's one minor reason.
Right, and to your point, Sam, it's almost like, I'm a golf guy. You get on one day, you get out there with your boys talking a bunch of crap, and you can't hit a fairway to save your life that whole day you're trying, and it just won't happen. I guess that's what you're saying with Jahan Dotson, meaning with the circumstance. And I understand what you mean by that, and that does make it even more frustrating because when we need answers, it doesn't help to just be brought with more questions. But last question that I do have for you this evening, sir. I want to ask you, this is very important for me. Who's your favorite draft analyst?
Um, I mean, when I covered the Chargers, Daniel Jeremiah was like the color guy on the
Okay.
radio. And so, and we used to play this game in the press box, where basically you would draw a number out of the hat, and the second number, like the last number of a guy's jersey number was the number that you pick. So if I picked 7, I get Terry McLaurin. So every time Terry scored a touchdown, you get 6 points.
Hmm.
Not that anybody cares about this, but DJ got super into that game, and it was just like we just had a lot of fun back and forth. I think he's a good dude. Lives in San Diego, has a pretty great life as far as I'm concerned.
That sounds like a great life. Working for
So
NFL Network, living in San Diego. Yeah.
yeah, I would say DJ is my guy. I like a lot of them. I think Matt Miller does a great job. Dominic does a great job. Um, McShay, Kuiper. Like I know all those dudes are legends. I just know DJ the best. I feel like of all of
Is
them.
there anybody that
Um,
you trust with draft analysts? Just being able to judge the game that you trust more than anybody else?
I think there's a lot of guys that have a lot of good insight into the game. But when you talk about dudes that see what's coming, like if I see a tweet about, oh, this team is looking for this, I'm like, okay, lock that in. That's not a smokescreen. I still would put DJ above him because I don't know if
Okay.
you guys remember, but like last year, DJ dropped his last mock draft the night before the first round, and he had the Texans picking second and third. He had the Texans going
Yeah.
Stroud at 2 and trading up to
Oh,
go
wow.
get Will Anderson. And so like he had that 24 hours before it happened. And I just remember that scoop is like that's not a Schefter
Yeah.
Rappaport scoop that they're gonna put that on Twitter. That's DJ reading the tea leaves, going to his sources and being like, all right, I see how it's gonna happen. And then the product, his work product gets better. And I saw it play out, and I was like, damn, that dude is tapped in.
There you go. See, that's exactly how you're supposed to do it, Sam. I appreciate you, brother, as always, being able to come on here and chalk it up with us in our stupid questions that we have to be able to lively up this everything that we possibly can. Sam, I can't thank you enough, man, as always. I hope you have a
Hey,
great weekend. Enjoy the last game of the season. I know it's going to be crazy up here. Just hopefully, just be able to be nice with us. Give us some nuggets. I'd love to be able to know what's coming down the pipeline, Sam. I'm just kidding.
thanks, guys. I always appreciate y'all. It's good talking to you at the end of what's been a long season.
Man, you ain't lying. Appreciate it,
I'll see
man.
you.
Long is a fun way to say it. All right, Sam. Have a good night, sir. All
Too.
right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Sam Fortier, and it was good to be able to hear him talk about the off the field kind of stuff and his honest opinion on what is happening at the moment.
Yeah, no, I love when we have Sam on. It's actually been a while since we had him on, so it was definitely good to, especially the last game of the season, good to get him on right before the last game.
Yeah, because this is going to be crazy. As much as we like to say that the week after the last game of the season means it's a chillax time, that's not going to be the case for the Commanders.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
I do want to ask you this before we get into fan questions, because that same question I had for Sam, like, how do you think the timeline is going to go in regards to this front office? Because it is very, very tricky, given the fact that the draft is very soon, and you putting together your scouting department in a month is going to really be detrimental for the draft in April.
Yeah, so I think the timeline is you can start talking to GMs, like no matter if on January 8th, like as soon as like I guess Black Monday, what they call it, happens, you can start
Doesn't
talking
gotta
to
be black,
GMs.
bro.
Like I know, right? You can start interviewing guys or requesting interviews for guys and talking to guys and bringing guys in and getting your candidates together and your list together and everything like that, and going forward with that list. And then I think they switched it this year to January 22nd, which would be the second round of the playoffs, is when teams can actually start interviewing and requesting interviews with head coaches. So I think they pushed it back like 1 week because last year you could do it like as soon as the playoffs started, like week one of the playoffs. So I think with the GM search, I definitely think, like Sam said, I think it'll move quickly. Like also, like you said, the draft is in April, but you got to start getting like your staff together, all the scouts gather
Right.
the scouts information and whatnot, feed it to your new staff and see what they do with it, and if everything goes towards the way it sounds like it's trending, they're going to have an analytics person. It's going to be heavy analytics, so they're going to have to build up the analytics team, hire those people, get them the information, take their information, match it up with everything like that. So I definitely think that the GM and the front office and all that is going to be hopefully a quick hire. And from that point on, I definitely think that hopefully around Super Bowl or somewhere between like January 22nd and the Super Bowl, hopefully we'll know who the next head coach is. And yeah, so I mean, I don't expect it to be like a GM. All right, cool, we got him. A couple weeks later, head coach, we got him. I definitely think it'll be like a month, maybe a month and a half process as far as the coach goes, as far as everything
Okay.
goes. But the GM and all that stuff, I definitely think that'll be like
Yeah,
quick,
I'm
fast in a
not.
hurry.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys, Hall. You know I love you, but in my personal opinion, they were starting to kickstart these GM slash front office personnel things in August.
Oh yeah,
When
yeah,
things
yeah, yeah.
actually turned over, so they already have the map out on who they want to bring in here. I would imagine, like when they sent a bid in for this team, like they had a map of
Oh
a
yeah,
list
yeah.
of what they wanted to do if they actually got the team. You don't put a bid in for something and not know what you're going to do with it, right? Like they
Yeah.
had a plan going into it, and so I honestly believe that going into this, they know what targets that they are going to go after, and I'd be willing to bet that they already had conversations. How can you say that somebody can't go out to dinner with somebody else?
Those back channel,
Right. Like,
back
hey, buddy,
channel
hey, you want to come out to
conversations.
dinner? I want to talk to you about my vacation coming up, whatever have you. And then ask the
Right.
question, hey, would you mind, let's just say, in the off
You mean
season.
they're not like using like untapped like cell phones, burner phones? They're not like putting on trench coats and sunglasses and like running to restaurants and like meeting in like dark
Like
alleyways. Like,
espionage
all right,
meetups, like
passing notes back and forth. Like, you got to
handing
walk
off
into the grocery
briefcases.
store and
Yeah.
like, yeah, you got to walk in the grocery store and switch carts with somebody. Like,
That's exactly right. That's what I think, though, is like that sort of Sean McVay, what Matt Stafford sort of thing is probably what most likely has been transpiring. And so I do think it's going to be relatively quick because, like you said, either you use the previous regime's draft scouting department be able to set you up, or you implement somebody who nobody's really expecting early in August to get started on that. And that is
Right.
what I most likely am banking on, just looking forward in the future. Now, going to our fan questions. This one was submitted in the Discord by our boy, Big Tony Shivers. What draft prospects from other teams in the national championship game would you love to see on the Commanders?
I gotta look who's even like draft eligible. But I mean, Michigan has a super stout defense, so I would say that there's probably a couple of prospects on their defense that are going to get drafted and could possibly turn into some guys. Obviously, everyone knows Michael Penix, just because if you didn't watch him before and you watched him that first time, you would probably be like, that dude's probably going number one in the draft. But yeah, Michael Penix is obviously a guy. There's a I forget his name, but the DN that plays for Washington as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
like Trice or something like that. I want to say.
Yeah, Braylon Trice. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, he'll probably be like a top 10, top 20 pick. So depending on how everything
But
shakes out, combine and
Washington,
whatnot.
Washington is loaded with
Yeah,
talent.
they're loaded with like
Their
talent.
number
They got
one
a couple offensive linemen, a left tackle. So yeah, there's definitely a couple names to be looking out for Monday. If you're a big draft person and everything like that, definitely be locked into that game because there's some prospects that are going to be out there to look forward to.
Damn you, because you stole it. That left tackle from Washington. If you guys watch Washington's film, their left tackle looks like a tight end. Like when you
Yeah.
watch it, you get weirded out because he looks like a tight end. Like, wait, he's blocking every play. Why isn't he running out? But it's because he is very thin. But I think he's about 6'5", 6'4", and I think
Yeah,
he's
something
less
like
than
that.
300. But when you watch him play, he's very aggressive, very controlling with his hands. He's got strong hands, but he's very athletic on top of that. And so if you can get him to add that weight on, that's a very intriguing prospect looking forward. I'm just going to say that because obviously they have their other tackle there as well that's going to be drafted. The Washington offense and team altogether is loaded, man. It's a very, very good team.
The
Credit to
wide
them.
receiver as well.
That's
Starts
what,
with
yeah.
a U. Aduza,
Yeah,
Aduzo, Aduza, something like
A
that.
doozy.
Aduzi, yeah. He looks like he's going to be a beast.
And then
So
Junior Volson from Michigan. Obviously, I'm not sure if we really want him. I'd rather go along the lines of Peyton Wilson, if that makes any sense. But that was a great question, Tony. Fantastic. Now, this next question submitted by the Colonel, who's actually sitting right next to me. Would you like to ask us, sir? His question is, Carson Wentz is making his
hell no.
first start for the Rams this weekend. With the offensive weapons at his disposal, how do you think he'll do, Hall?
That's a good question. I would assume Puka is going to play because he has like a record that he's trying to break. So
I think Cooper is the one that most likely is not going to play.
yeah, yeah. They'll probably get a good quarter or so, maybe a half so with the starters, and then work some other guys in. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Carson comes out there and lights it up. It's not like the guy doesn't lack talent and everything like that. He can make all the throws, obviously. I think with him, it was more of like a long term like confidence thing. But if you just need him to come in for one game and come out there with no what you call it
No
behind
holds
it, no
barred,
like yeah, like you know what I'm saying, he has nothing to lose
no
basically. Like
strings attached.
yeah, like it's not like Matt Stafford's injured and he has to come in there and win them the game. Like they're already locked into their playoff spot. If they win the game, they gain nothing. They lose the game, they gain nothing. So he can go out there and play free. That's what I say. That's what I want to say. He can go out there and play freely and not have to worry about in the back of his mind, like, oh, if I make a mistake, like the fan base is gonna go crazy, they're gonna hate me, and like so I wouldn't be surprised if he went out there and lit it up on him.
He's going to ball, Colonel. He's going to ball on Sunday. I'm just going to be honest with you. And the reason why I say that, if you look at Sean McVay and his quarterbacks that he has had, going to Jared Goff, even Baker Mayfield last year, then going to get Matthew Stafford, a lot of statue-esque kind
Cannon
of
arms.
passers. And that's goes to Carson Wentz's strength in meaning of sitting in the pocket, being able to distribute. And at this point, it's almost like if you need a recharge, if you're a quarterback in the NFL, you need a recharge, almost like the defibrillator. You need a charge up to get ready to go. You go to LA or you go to Cleveland, apparently, with Joe Flacco and others, because you do well. Even Josh Dobbs did well. But I think that Carson is set up for success in LA because of the system and offense that he's in, because Sean McVay is able to scheme the offense to him around to his strengths. And I definitely think that he's going to ball this weekend, and also given the fact of just Washington's luck.
Right.
Could he be a Stafford replacement? He asked that on that.
I mean, I think Stafford still maybe has like another year, maybe 2 years left in him. I want to say I think he even came out and said he's definitely coming back next year. So, I mean, if he comes out and lights it up and Sean McVay likes what he sees, maybe they bring him back next year in like another 1 year deal or something like that, or maybe they bring him back for training camp and see how he works out,
Right.
see how he blends into the locker room, something like that. Because again, we know Carson Wentz has the arm strength and everything like that. It was more of like the talent, or not the talent, the locker room aspect of it and like the leadership aspect. But if he can come in and be a backup, not have to worry about being a leader and not really worry about having like the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. Yeah, I think that a guy like Sean McVay is definitely someone that can build his confidence up and put him in the best position to succeed.
I don't think that he's gonna take
But I
over.
wouldn't say he's going to be like
Yeah,
a replacement guy.
I think
Like
that this is a good way for Carson to kind of supplement himself as a good backup for
right,
LA. I think
exactly.
Carson should be scared as hell to leave LA. If I'm him, dude, you should enjoy that moment while you have, because being a backup quarterback, especially with in an offense like that where you know that you can go in and execute, you're probably going to do well. You know what I
And
mean?
if we're being honest with ourselves, like this is probably the first year that Matt Stafford's played like majority of the season, but that is a guy that he does play through injuries, but he gets nicked up and injured a lot. So if Carson's looking for another shot, maybe a couple game stretch or maybe something like that,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be so bad to maybe try to stay out in LA.
So this next question, I'm gonna mix it up. Colonel has one more question. I'm gonna wait till later for that one. This one is submitted by Larry Law Bryan on Twitter, who we've met before. I'm not sure if you have, but he had a question for us, and the way that we're going to answer this question is we're going to answer it for one another. So I'm going to answer this for you, and you're going to answer this for me. Okay? So his question to us, Hall: when did you finally give up on Ron Rivera and this regime?
So I'm answering this like as what your answer would be.
Yes.
uh, yeah, I was gonna say I would probably say that Chicago game, like just because up to that point it was kind of like they played up and down, and that was like the Chicago Bears team that was like kind of like us, just a beaten down team, hasn't won a game in a while. Justin Fields was playing like not like he's been playing like now like, recently lately, and like I said, it was the Bears. They were like kind of like us, the laughing stock of the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of the laughing stock of the league, and we came out there and we got mollywopped by the Bears.
You're right.
So I think the Bears would be a suitable answer.
I will say you're wrong, first and foremost. But I will say, in regards to Hall, Hall has never really truly been on. I will be that on his defense. He's always been very quick to kind of second guess things and to say you're not pulling the wool over my eyes sort of thing. And having an issue with the lackluster starts to seasons, he's been very adamant about that. Hall has always been easy in that regard. So when he said you guys, it's not for you, it's for me. And honestly, the right answer for me, it is never was, because I understood that. Let's say this, because what his point is that I was very defensive of Ron Rivera over a lot of stupid things that he did. My line of thinking back in a couple years ago was, do you want Dan Snyder to hire the new guy? Or,
Yeah.
do you want the new guy to be successful? What I was invested in is making sure that Ron Rivera was successful, because this is the first time since Dan Snyder took over that he allowed somebody to actually work by themselves. And this was somebody that he couldn't take control over, because Ron Rivera has connections through media and through the NFL, and that would have gotten out very, very quickly. So
That's true.
I wanted
Yeah.
Ron Rivera to succeed, because that meant Dan Snyder, this is what happens when you stay the hell out. This is what happens when you go away. We win football games. And obviously that didn't happen, because
I get it.
multiple
Like
things
so, maybe like if we start winning and everything, Dan Snyder realizes like, oh,
right.
maybe I should like take a step back and not meddle and blah 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 blah. Like do
Right,
what I've
but
been doing
then
for
when
the past forever.
When Josh Harris and company
I
took
get what you're
over,
saying.
in reality will tell you there needs to be a change, and obviously at this point there should be a change, and that's where the realization came to me about what Ron Rivera essentially was a firefighter on a ship, and making sure that the ship got to its destination in the right condition in a good situation. You know what I'm saying? But I will say this: I had a huge issue with this past draft. I mean, when that Emmanuel Forbes pick was selected, it's not because of Emmanuel. It was because of how adamant I was about Gonzo, and that they didn't go down that route. And I was kind of questioning myself and what I was seeing, and if I was really doing a good job by myself being able to diagnose what was happening. And I questioned that. And then with the DeJuan Jones thing. So I will say I lost confidence in the staff after the draft this past year. but I've always known what was most likely going to happen. I just didn't want it to happen under Snyder. I didn't want it to happen during the season because that idiot was going to ruin everything else anyway. And that was my line of thinking with it all. Is I just didn't want Snyder continuing to control things because whenever he didn't have control, good things happen. That's just how I feel. Now,
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
next question. This one is from CJ, our boy on Twitter. He says this is a topic. Scheme changes and how possibly would drastically change not only on the offense, but could change the defense more. New DC could want to run a 3-4, and what personnel best suits the pieces they need for the line?
Yeah, I guess it just depends on who the next head coach is and who he's going to hire as his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or whatnot. But I would say that, and I say this with offense as well, for so many years, and no matter who the coach was, it's always been like Bruce Allen for like many, many years. But
Right.
no matter who the coach was, they would come in and run their system. And maybe it was because Bruce Allen and Dan Snyder, they were kind of just like, no, we want that guy. And they were doing their own thing and not really working with the coaches on the players to fit their scheme and whatnot. But it was always like we were picking guys and drafting guys and picking up guys in free agency that did not fit the defensive scheme that we wanted to run or the offensive scheme we wanted to run. I mean, this happened here a couple times as well.
Yeah, we
too.
switched to a 3-4 when we didn't have the personnel for it. We still had Andre
Exactly.
Carter out there.
Exactly. So I would say that I like the offense to be like, obviously you have your scheme and you have like your West Coast and your air choreo, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I like the offensive coordinator too. Okay, what are my players that I have out there, my 11 guys on the field? What do they do best? And I'm going to try to mold my offense around that and within my scheme as well to put them in the best positions to succeed. So I would say that goes for the defense as well. He's going to come in. They're not going to be able to gut the entire defense. There's still going to be some carryovers, some holdovers. There's going to be, who knows, Jonathan Allen will be here whenever, blah, blah, blah. But there's going to be –
That's a good
I would say that
question, but we'll get
it. Yeah, I would say that the defensive coordinator, whoever it may be, should run his scheme and whatever, but he'll be able to, okay, what does Daron Payne do best? What does whoever the cornerback is do best? And I'm going to work it within my scheme around that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and let's just say, CJ, for so to speak, if they did run a 3-4, this would fit really well with what they do defensively, especially with somebody like Daron Payne. Daron Payne being a finesse type of rusher, he can do the bull rush, but he is very good at swimming, quickness, right? Well, you'd want him on the guard's outside shoulder in that case, right? You don't want the beef more so. You want to be able to have that finesse. 3-4 benefits him. Ridgeway, the 3-4 benefits Ridgeway. He is a perfect nose tackle. He was the perfect replacement for Matt Ioannidis, and for me personally, he's above Fedarian Mathis at this point on the roster. But then to add on top of that with the 3-4, that would fit Jamin Davis, because then you could actually move Jamin Davis to the outside, and you could completely retool the two in between middle linebackers there and actually put Jamin to his strength. Make his job much, much easier and not allow him to think as much and just be able to attack the football and be able to contain things on that side. I think the 3-4 would benefit them in some of the guys here, but that being said, we shouldn't be basing and switching our defenses on Jamin Davis, who possibly won't be here next year, you know.
Yeah, they might not even pick up the fifth-year option. I forgot about that.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Now, the next question is from Tony Franchise. He asks, what went wrong with the Ron Rivera era of this team?
That's funny. I would say that he said it a couple times himself. I would say the quarterback. He's never really focused on getting that quarterback. He never really – I'm not going to say he didn't do what he had to do whatever he needed to do to get a quarterback, because he did try to get Russell Wilson. And obviously with everything going on with Dan Snyder, Russell Wilson wasn't going to come here with his squeaky clean image and whatnot, at least what he thinks in his head. And
I think Callow has it on point.
Yeah, he tried to get Matt Stafford, and obviously like who's going to pick DC and all the stuff that was going on with Dan Snyder and everything like that over LA, Sean McVay, and that team that was pretty much ready-made for a Super Bowl. They just needed a quarterback to drop in there. So, I'm not going to say that he didn't try, because he definitely did. But I would say that just overall quarterback is a quarterback league. It's the haves and the have-nots. You either have one or you don't. And if the people that do are usually the teams that are perennial playoff and Super Bowl contending teams. The ones that don't, You can still make a run. Obviously, you see teams like Gardner Minshew and the Colts and stuff like that. But yeah, I would just say he should have not have kicked the can down the road on the quarterback. He should have attacked it from day one.
And there you go, my friend. Right into my argument. I think Callow is on it in this regard. I am very confident in how I feel about this. That when Ron Rivera was taken over, Callow told us this last week. That most likely he thinks, as Snyder told him,
without a doubt, yeah,
you
I think
have
a lot of
full
people think
control,
that.
but you have to have Haskins as the starting quarterback. And remember that Ron Rivera came in there and he said he felt that Haskins deserved a year as the starter to be able to have
Remember,
that.
he said he was testing him
Right.
at like
And we
points
had
in the season.
and we had the second overall pick. Now, if
Yeah.
Haskins was not forced down his throat, Washington is open to then moving around. All of this stems back from Dan Snyder and adjusting, manipulating, moving things around. That forced kind of Chase. And look, I love Chase. I love Chase. I wanted us to pick him when he was available because of the situation that we were in, because we had Haskins. I was all cool with it. Now looking at it, I can understand and see where things went wrong. And honestly, not a lot of people are putting this up there. The dude's cancer literally ruined this whole thing from the start. Like from the get-go. He wasn't even here like 6 months before he got cancer, dude. Look, we're not here to make excuses, but reality
You
is
know what's
for what
crazy
it
about
is. Like,
that? Like,
do you
just
really
thinking back?
do you really think that
No,
Ron
keep
Rivera
going.
was at the top of his game the past 4 years?
No.
Like,
But
on
also,
a human level.
you got to think about like obviously the division was down, there was injuries, whatever, blah blah blah. But like those guys are really like, yo, like because like he even said we got to build it up the right way, whatever, blah blah blah. Once they kind of looked and said, oh, we can win the division, like those guys went all the way in. Like we got to win it for Ron. Like he's going through his cancer.
Right.
He's beating cancer. We got to get to the playoffs for him. And to your point, if they would have just sat back and said, you know what, this is just a build it year. Let's put the pieces in place and go from there. And really gave a fair evaluation on the quarterback and didn't just we got to win, we got to win, we got to win. I think that we would be probably in a better position because we would have known that Dwayne was not the guy before all that stuff would have went down. They would have went quarterback and maybe not had Alex Smith go out there like winning us games, whatever, blah blah blah, winning the division, getting us a playoff game. That was all cool and fun and all, but looking back on it, that was probably step one of the demise of Ron Rivera, honestly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, this is the last thing I'll say regarding this. In regards to Ron Rivera, with everything that has happened, what was the biggest mistake of all? And in my honest opinion, I believe taking the job in the first place. For Ron Rivera's sake of mine. I mean, the guy got cancer, and then not like honestly, he got cancer, and like we embraced it. We defended him. We really loved the dude because we were like, that's our coach. This sucks that it's happening. Because for the first time, we had hope that maybe there was a regime change coming. Actually, somebody football mind actually controlling things because there's no way Snyder was going to tell Ron what to do, right? And so we kind of looked at it like, oh, that's awesome. But now looking at
It was finally an adult in the room, basically.
now looking at it from a grand scheme, way after the fact, I want to ask you guys a question. Is there any head coach in the National Football League that could have taken over Washington in 2020 with the ownership change, with the name change, with the sexual assault allegations, with everything that transpired with this football team? Is there any head coach in this league that you would have felt comfortable could be successful?
No, without a doubt, I
No.
would say like Sam said, whenever
And
I
so
guess
my biggest point is I don't like when people try to come at me like saying I'm a defender of Ron and stuff like it's not that I'm a defender of Ron. It's just seeing reality for what it is. Nothing was going to grow in that scenario, in that environment. You're talking that's a desert. That's not a rainforest. That's a desert.
No, you're right. I mean, like I said, and obviously this is like revisionist history, and people want to say, "Oh, we took Chase Young, man. We should have took Tua, Justin Herbert." But again, Justin Herbert was never thought of that number two guy, and Tua again. Even if you want to play the what if game, you
Right.
think Tua would have came here? First of all, he was trying to get run out of Miami by Brian Flores and all those guys. So like,
Yeah.
we're way more toxic than Miami. You think he would have survived here and flourished here? No. Justin Herbert, even though like the Chargers have their flaws and they're kind of like weird, wacky, like they can never get over the hump and they never live up to the potential. You think Justin Herbert would have came here with the weapons that were already here in place outside of Terry? You think he would have came here and thrived and done it like been Justin Herbert he is now, which I mean, he's good and all, but he doesn't really go out there and really win games.
Right.
And I'm a big Justin Herbert guy. Like I was pre-draft and I still am. But like I'm just saying, like you to your point, no matter who the coach was, maybe outside of Ron and maybe Bill Belichick and some other like maybe older cornerstone type of coach, no matter who the quarterback was, no matter who was here, nothing good was ever going to come of it. No one was going to be able to develop and thrive. I think.
And tell me that Dan Snyder was giving Ron Rivera the full assets, cash money to be able to build up this team as much as possible with motivation. And then tell me that obviously the GM aspect of it wasn't Ron Rivera's fault, but the fact is that you're basically alone without an adult in a room above you with Ron Rivera. And this is a franchise that's going through the turmoil it is. That's a hard pull to be successful in that environment. That being said, I have a fantastic question to ask you. Coach Curl reached out in DM today, and he said that he saw my tweet asking for questions. So his question is, Hall, where do you think Cam will end up during free agency?
Coach, you see those all this Burgundy in the background and Kyle's background. You see the W's on our chest. He's ended up here in free agency. We better not look. I would knock on wood because I want my man to get a long-term contract. I think he deserves it. I think that if there was different circumstances, ownership, whatever, blah blah blah, I think Ron Rivera would have gave Cam Curl that extension, but he didn't have the power to, obviously, with the ownership changeover. So I do think that I hope that the new people come in, they see Cam's value, see what he brings to the locker room on the field and off the field, and I hope that they give him that long-term deal. But I mean, I just hope they put the franchise on him just to so he can't go nowhere, and then we can work a deal out because obviously we want our guy to get paid because he definitely deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you in the DM today, Coach, I didn't want to answer this question. I hated it, but I'll answer it because you're my man. I love you, Coach. But his opinion, he doesn't think the organization has any intention on re-signing Cam, and
I mean, look,
wholeheartedly.
I hope that's not true, but I could definitely, because we don't even know who the coach is,
Right.
the GM, and all that. So I could definitely see where maybe there's no interaction between agent and whatever. But I would just say, once the new people get in place, like front office, GM, and the head coach, he hires his staff. I would hope and pray that they looked at the film, reviewed the film, and said, "That's a dude, just like Terry on offense. That's a dude that we can build with on the field and obviously in the locker room as a cornerstone guy going forward."
Franchise tag is a really good way to be able to go about that kind of process because Cam, I think, does deserve it. Now, I hate this question, Coach, but I will say this. Because I love Cam and I believe in Cam, where can I see Cam playing in free agency or targeting? I would say the Miami Dolphins. I want him to go down in the warm weather. I want him to enjoy the beach. I want him to be able to have his income untaxed. And I want him to enjoy the best life possible in a safe manner. I know Miami is kind of crazy in that instance, but I want him to be successful. So I would like to put him in one of those scenarios. Maybe
Honestly,
even
them saving-
Seattle, because Seattle is obviously looking for DB help.
Seattle would be nice too. Pittsburgh, I see him going to Pittsburgh as well. But I would say this: obviously, we want him to stay here, and yeah, we want him to be one of those franchise type guys going forward, leading the franchise, like C on his chest type dude. But to answer your question even better, Coach, I want my man Cam to go in free agency. Whoever's going to pay him the most money, I want my man to get the bag because he deserves it. So whoever's going to pay him the most money, and he thinks he's going to fit the best, that's where I want him to end up.
All right, but what if it's Dallas?
Except for Dallas or Philly.
Or New York.
In New York.
And that's my point. Is look, you can offer him a lot of money, but he's going to a place that's taxed out the
Matter
ass.
of fact,
I'd rather go to
go
an
to
untaxed
go to
state.
go to the AFC. Go to the AFC.
That's
Don't
what I
even,
said,
deal with the
Miami.
AFC anymore.
Go down
go
to
to
Florida.
Jacksonville or something like that. Go enjoy that Florida life.
I just don't want to see Cam destroy us 2 times a month.
I know,
But
because
Coach,
he would
if you
definitely. He
Coach,
would.
just promise me you guys would never sign with Dallas. Just make me that promise. I know you can't. I know you want your son in the NFL. Just make me that promise. I need it. No, but the next question we have, this one was from the Colonel, his second question that he asked us all. First one is a hard one. Rio Robinson is pretty certain we'll be moving on from Jonathan Allen, despite the massive contract he signed a couple years ago. Do you think this is going to happen? And if so, how would we let him go? Release or trade?
Well, you know that I've been on top of this many a week ago when I figured out and I heard that he had no more guaranteed money on his contract after that Giants game when he went on the rant and everyone started kind of digging and diving and dang, why is Jonathan Allen going off like this? He don't never really do this. So, yes, I've been saying this since that first Giants game when he went on his rant. He has no more guaranteed money on his contract, and more than likely, he's trying to get another contract. So the best possible way for him to get another contract is probably not going to be here. Would be to come draft time, offer him up into a trade, and maybe he goes somewhere, does like a sign and trade type thing where he gets traded there, kind of like Montez Sweat, where we trade him there for like a second, third round pick, whatever it may be, and he signs like a 2 3 year deal with whatever team that he's going to for a contract. But I would not be surprised if he is. I would love him to stay here because he's definitely a good defensive tackle, like top half of the league defensive tackle. Even with a down year this year, I feel like Ron said he was like playing through injury this year too, so maybe that's why. But I think that he's definitely like again, he's one of them guys that's a great
Yeah.
leader, great locker room dude, good on the field. But I would not be surprised if he's traded. And like I said, I've been saying this many a week ago.
Yeah. Do I think it's going to happen? I'm not entirely sure because I honestly don't know the entire situation. But if Jonathan Allen is pissed off to the point where he does want to be traded, I could see that it happening. And what's really disappointing is we got to interview John, a couple years ago, and in person. And I really respect John and everything that he represents, what he does, everything that he's gone through. But like John had to know what was going to go down here. And I thought John would be the type of dude that'd be embracing the challenge. I know nobody likes to lose this much. It sucks. It's horrible. I get it. But that makes the fruit juicier at the end of the road when it does come. That you're finally able to get it done. And I know you probably don't want to sit here in the misery of it all, and I'm sure it sucks to be able to embrace all that. But I kind of disappointed with John in that
Look,
regard.
he's talking about he doesn't want to go through a rebuild, whatever, blah blah blah. Well, you've pretty much been on a rebuild for the whole time you've
And
been
that's his
here. So
point.
like,
And that's his point. He doesn't
I
want to have
know,
to go
but
through another one.
the thing is though, like,
But John should
I
know
know
more than anybody that in the NFL, quick turnover can happen anytime.
that was literally about to
Sorry,
be my point.
my
I was
bad.
like, I know he doesn't like, no, it's all good. Like he doesn't like know like, oh, they got this much cap space and they're gonna hire this GM. He's gonna get this type of player and blah 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 blah. And they're gonna hire this coach. It's gonna be a perfect fit for me in the scheme. But like you said, he seems like I understand where he's coming from as well because obviously you come into this league to do two things, three, maybe really three things: make yourself a career out of like a dream that you had as a child or whatever it may be. Get to make a lot of money and get to a Super Bowl, win a championship. Like everyone wants to come in the league and be a winner. No one wants to come in the league and just be like, well, I'm lying. There are some people that come into the league that's just like, I'm happy to be here. I'm getting paid. But
Yeah, I was
yeah,
about
my
to
main
say
point is
Albert
he seems like a
Hainsworth.
guy that's like, I started here and I see things are finally maybe going to be changing. And I want to stick it out and be here whenever the finished product is here and be a part of the solution instead of like, not saying he was part of the problem, but I'm saying
Right.
like I want to be part of the solution that's come from the problem with this franchise for so many years. So, but like I said, he's getting older. I see where he's coming from. But again, in
I,
my mind,
I know.
it all stems back to he ain't got no more guaranteed money left. He wants some more guaranteed money somehow, some way. And if it's in a trade or him going to another team, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I just hate this season so much. I had to answer this sort of question with Chase and Montez and now John, and we did it with Duran before. But it's like I just hate having to think of the idea that they don't want to be here, right? And I
Yeah.
hate that idea because I want you to
Dog,
want to
it'd
be
be
here.
so crazy that everyone said when we drafted all these defensive linemen, like, oh, you obviously you can't keep all of them. Like
You're right.
you'll be able to keep two, maybe three, and it's possible that three out of the four are going to be gone in one season.
Yeah, and look, no, I understand why John wants to do it, but just there's no reason to get into this. Now, the next question is from Yam Sensei. Thank you, Yam. He says, other than a win over the Cowboys, which I sadly don't see happening, what else as fans can we potentially hang our hats on instead of hang our hats over when the final whistle blows to end the season? You can't say Dan being gone. You also can't say a new incoming staff. Something from this year and this year alone.
Well, and that was going to be my number one answer. New staff, but no, one thing you can hang your hat on. I'd say the emergence of Brian Robinson. I think that, like Sam talked about, he played his ass off this year. He really emerged as a guy that can catch the ball at the backfield. Where I feel like people tried to kind of pigeonhole him as
Right.
like a big bruising Derrick Henry type guy that can only do one thing, and he showed that he's versatile. He showed that he doesn't have like that. I can take it to the house like up the gut on any type of play, but he showed he can take it to the house, like on that catch down the sideline. So I think that Brian Robinson showed that he can definitely be a integral piece of this running game going forward with the next staff, and I hope that they use him in a more lucrative way than he was used this year, I should say.
That's a good way to answer this question. Yam, I'm gonna use this as a way to kind of, because a lot of people have been asking about Ron Rivera's culture response, and has things really changed? Is the team better off today than it was when Ron took over? And I want to ask, like, that would be my response to you guys. Do you think this team is in a better position right now than they were when Ron Rivera took the job day one in 2019 or in 2020? And I will say it is, given the simple fact that we have a bunch of top value third round and earlier picks. We have a boatload in cap space. We have no hefty, heavy contracts over our head, i.e. D'Angelo Hall, i.e. Albert Hainsworth. We don't have anything of that regard. Alex Smith, for another instance. But also, on top of that, we have a rookie contract right now as we're speaking. Without having Dan Snyder in the picture, for the first time, this Washington team is actually set up in a way that is attractive to incoming smart people. You're not walking in and you're saying, you have to deal with this. You have to get along with that. No. You have the choice to say, if you want to rip it all out and start over, you can. And not only can you do that, we also have a bunch of draft picks and $100 million in cash waiting for you. That is what you can hang your hat on to sit here and say, we are in a great freaking position right now. And that is because of the decisions by Ron Rivera all 4 years. I listen to everyone complain about them not going to get a quarterback, not trading up for a quarterback, not paying a quarterback, not drafting this wide receiver, not drafting a tight end. The reason why it's so attractive at the moment is because Ron Rivera didn't do those things. As much as we want to pile on Rivera for how bad the team is right now, the reason that we're in the position right now and as attractive as it is because of the way that Ron ran this football team. And you do have to give him credit for that.
That's so true. That's just funny. Like, you ran it into the ground, but thank you, because we're in a great position.
Seriously,
that we were,
though,
like, as far as like,
and that's
and
that's what I mean about the
because
firefighter. That's what I mean about the firefighter reaching his destination. Okay, and that's what I mean about Ron, is that's basically what he was doing. And look, you did his job. Now the next question that we have is from Deluxe. Game on the line this Sunday. Are you going for 2 to win or 1 to tie in forced overtime?
This would be the time where he goes for 2, and it doesn't even matter. Like, well, it does matter as far as, like,
If Cheeseman was still on the team, I would say go for 1.
I know, right? But nah, he would go for 2 just in this situation. Like, oh, I gotta go out on a high note and beat Dallas, but also mess up. I mean, look, it'd be crazy. It would be funny, hilarious, and I would love it, because that means that they wouldn't win the division. And I would just laugh at that, because we'd probably go for 2 and get it. But at the same token, I'd be like, damn, we just dropped down to like the 5th, 6th, 7th pick, whatever it might be. Like,
right.
Damn. So it's like a double-edged sword. But I mean, if I had to choose one, I would say field goal, because if we can go to overtime, we can still lose it.
Yeah. I would say go for 2, because you could throw the ball back in the end zone. Now the next question is from Orange Crush 92. What does Fedarian Mathis, pick 47 overall in 2022, mean to this team going forward? A big question moving forward is what Fedarian Mathis brings. And it's a great question by OC. And that's my whole point about John Ridgeway, because at this point, what has Fedarian Mathis done to be able to warrant you to say that he is a starter, he is a good and adept piece whatsoever? And that is the big question here. And that's why with Fedarian, it's a gigantic question mark. And at this point, you're looking at him as saying it's a piece that it's almost like a Braden Daniels pick at this point, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. It's more of a question mark. Again, maybe with there's less D linemen in the room. Like, obviously, I know Jonathan Allen's still there, Deron Payne is still there, Ridgeway's still there, but maybe one of those guys, like I said, maybe Jonathan Allen gets dealt. That creates more of an opportunity for him to get on the field, get some more reps. But like you said, it's more of a question mark thing. And yeah, hopefully a new coach, a new staff will be able to get something out of him and see. We'll be able to see. We'll be able to see what he can do on the field. But as far as, like, he's been injured a lot on and off the field. When he is on the field,
he's been healthy in the second half of the season. But
he doesn't really stand out when he is on. Yeah, he doesn't really stand out when he is on the field. So. Yeah, I would say maybe another staff can get something out of him, but like you said, it's more of like a Braden Daniels question mark at this point. Like, man,
But that being said, OC, if you are looking to move on from Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, probably be smart to keep Arian Mathis on the depth chart just so you don't go bare at that point. Now, the
right.
next question that we have, we got to go rapid fire because we do have some of these, and I forgot to ask some of them. This from Tim Towner. Saw that Arizona head coach Jonathan Gannon just confirmed Kyler Murray as the 2024 starting QB1. When do you expect that to happen for Washington?
Um, what day is the draft? April, whatever, 20 something.
Ninth.
That
I'm not sure if it's my birthday, but it's around there.
Yeah, April 29th, something like that. But whenever the draft is, I would say that it wouldn't be QB1, but we know how the NFL is nowadays. You draft a first round QB, unless you're Kansas City with Alex Smith or Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, you're pushing them out there from day one, or maybe not from day one, but they'll be out there sooner than later. So I would say that whenever the draft comes in April, that'll be QB1. But technically, if you want to be technical about it, it'll be like training camp. Probably we'll see who the QB1 is.
No, I'll say that. Well, I think Tim is meaning like when will the coach come out and say who the starting quarterback is? And I'm not going to say head coach. I'll even say GM or whoever's the representative from Washington. And I'll say it's probably going to be the night of the draft. And the reason why I say that is you don't want to say anything beforehand because if you do go with Sam Howell to say Sam Howell's our starter, that kind of takes you out of the bargaining aspect, right? Of kind of showing what you want to do there. If you continue to say we might take a quarterback, that's going to make teams kind of offer you more. You know what I mean? And so that's why I would say expect it to after the draft. Either they stick with Sam, they'd say, yeah, we've always believed in Sam. We just wanted to see what we could get. Or the vice versa is saying, yeah, this is our new direction and this is the process that we're going down. Either way, I wouldn't be mad at it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. If you made it this far, you are a freaking champion. Thank you to the Colonel, who's been sitting by me this whole time, by the way, and listening. He was trying to listen into the pod, but because I wear headphones, he can't hear anything. So he's kind of bitter at first, but he's been sticking around here, man.
Nice.
All right, everybody. We will see you guys again on Sunday evening. Make sure you check it out for our recap of the last game of the season, kind of talk about everything going forward. Thank you to Sam Fortier. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question in today. I really do appreciate you guys. Love some of you. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Sunday. I'm Kyle.
I'm all.
You know what I'm talking about. All right, we'll see you on Sunday. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.